Seriously, who doesn't like 80s hair bands? Well, our special guest today, Michael Michalowicz, is actually a huge fan of 80s hair bands. So we'll give a little rock. Hey, welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. I am your host, and this is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement, but rock retirement like an 80s hair band. So today is a little bit of a special episode. This is the week of Labor Day, and September, the theme is going to be relocating in retirement. But for this first week, since it's a holiday week and a lot of us are still recovering from hopefully a long weekend, we're going to have a special guest on, Michael Michalowicz, to talk about his new book, Clockwork, and how to make a business run itself so you can find some more freedom. We originally wanted this to be in our Entrepreneurship and Retirement series, but busy guys like Mike, they got schedules, so we wanted to make sure we fit him in. So let's do that, but before we do that, let's have that all important disclaimer. Hey, real simple here. You know the drill. Don't take advice from me. Don't take advice from Mike on this show. This is all helpful hints and education. Only make decisions when you talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor, because that's just common sense. So before we get to the conversation with Michael, I wanted to talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur, because I am an entrepreneur. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and we are natural builders at heart. And so when we get closer to retirement, if we're running a business, it's very difficult to, one, separate who we are as a person from the business, because it's been our baby that we've grown for so long. And two, it's very difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs to separate themselves from the business in the sense that the business can operate without them. Usually it starts with a cult of personality, or that person, that owner, that entrepreneur stamp is in everything, and they keep all the information in their head, and they don't delegate and create systems and processes so the business can actually run without them. And there's a difference between building enterprise value in a business, meaning value that is separate from the owner, that the business grows, and having a business that creates a big income, hopefully, for the owner or the entrepreneur. And that can be problematic depending on how you did it when you get close to retirement. Because think about this. When you get close to retirement, your choices are, I either sell the business because I really don't want to work that hard anymore. Well, the more the business is in your head and the more the business needs you to operate, the less value you're going to get from the business in terms of selling it. You almost have to just have liquidation value and maybe sell it to somebody. And if you sell it to somebody, they're going to want you to stick around to finally get everything out of your head to make sure the business can operate. So that puts you in a bind, right? And you'll probably get less for the business, and Michael's going to talk about that. Whereas if you're very intentional early on, you can build a business that can operate and can be sustainable by delegating, creating systems, creating processes. And that's what Michael's going to talk about a little bit. But the key here for me that I wanted to at least point out and remind you of is that the earlier you start that journey, the more you're going to have flexibility when you decide, hey, I really want to slow down. And I'll tell you, I'm 51 and I'm doing that in my business. I talk all the time about how I have no plans to retire because I've worked to build a very flexible business model. But I am getting processes in place. That's why we solidified what agile retirement management is. That's why we're solidifying what the retirement standard of care is. And that's why we will bring on people to mentor through and learn those processes and help refine them, because this needs to live a lot longer than I do, because I think this is important if people are going to find that balance in life. So here I am, a 51-year-old saying I'm never going to retire. And I'm already doing these things because I realize life changes, and the only way to have the impact that you want in a business for the people you serve, in my case, and for your family is to walk this journey before you may even be ready for it. Doesn't mean you ever have to sell it, but it's going to end up making you have the ability to have more freedom even if you never sell it because you have those things in place. All right, a little rant there, but I think it's an important thing if you're a business owner and looking forward, you need to be thinking about this stuff. So let's go talk to Michael. I am so excited. Michael Michalowicz. He is an entrepreneur, an author. He wrote Pumpkin Patch, Profit First. His new book is Clockwork. He's got a bunch of other books all about entrepreneurship, and I feel like we're a kindred spirit in that he talks like a human because this stuff can be really complicated, and he makes it not. He makes it not complicated and approachable, and it's very practical stuff. So I'm a little bit of a fanboy, Michael. I like him, and I think you're going to like him too. We'll have links to the books in the show notes and in Six Shot Saturday, so you can get access to those. So hopefully you enjoy this conversation. Let's go talk to Mr. Michalowicz. Mike Michalowicz. Good name. So I'm excited about your new book, Clockwork. And we just had a series on entrepreneurship and retirement. And I think that, the pumpkin principle and then profit first, which I just implemented in my business early this year, which has really helped a lot. And I think Clockwork is sort of the extension of that. And maybe that's why you did it that way, of how do you create a business that you're not, it's sort of that E-Myth thing, right? Is that sort of a lot of the message?
Yeah, I think it's definitely E-Myth like, where E-Myth's the core principle is, don't work in the business, work on your business. But I think the challenge E-Myth is it doesn't have much of the how-to. And I think many entrepreneurs think it's a throttle. One day you're not working in the business anymore, you're working on it. So Clockwork is more of how to throttle up, how to slowly but persistently get out of your business so automatic.
Yeah, and you write more practical books that are very readable in terms of, and I know we were talking about the audio book before, and with your voice, you have a great spirit that you share and go off script a lot, which is great.
Hey, because that's the way my mind operates. I need simple steps to get things done. In fact, every book I've written is actually something I'm also applying to my own businesses. I'm trying to improve my businesses, and I need a simple approach. Otherwise, I'll lose my attention or it'll just overwhelm me.
So let's dive into this a little bit, because we're talking to people that either are running businesses right now and they're looking at gaining more time freedom. I mean, we talk about retirement, which I don't really like the word, but it's more about gaining time freedom. Why is it that entrepreneurs end up working harder than if they actually just had a job?
Yeah, the funny thing is they get, I don't know if the word's complacency, but what happens is when we start a business, for most entrepreneurs, we start it without a tremendous amount of funding. Most entrepreneurs don't start their business with 100 staff members in place. Most start it with their own sweat and tears. And so they fall very quickly into this routine where they are expected to do everything because they have to do everything. They do the accounting, they do the service, they do the sales, they do everything in between, the administration, everything. Well, at a certain point, that becomes then the commonplace. So they think, well, this is how you grow a business. You must do everything all the time. And they get routinized in their process. So they believe that their way is the best way. If they dare make a hire, that person won't be able to achieve their standards because that person doesn't know the entrepreneur's way. So the entrepreneur gets frustrated. So there's this belief, because we become so entrenched in doing it ourselves, that the only way to do it is to do it ourselves. In fact, we start having these false positives because we work harder. We're like, if I work more hours, it'll grow the business. And sure enough, it does, because in the early stages, it does. We see these numbers. Like, I can't tell you how many early stage entrepreneurs will call me and say, "Oh my God, we had 100% growth this year, 150% growth." Yeah, you went from $50 in revenue to $100 in revenue. That's pretty easy. Moving from 1 million to 2 or 2 to 10, like that is much harder. So the entrepreneur in the early stage is expected and needs to do everything. To run a business on automatic, we need to change our mindset and realize that is simply how you get the spark sparked or get that initial spark out, but that's not how you make the flame grow. You have to get other people doing the work in a common complementary method that gets the business moving forward to where you really want to take it.
Well, and that's where I wanted to go. When you say automatic, define that term in your world.
Yeah. So automatic, it does not mean that there is this robot, spitting it out necessarily. What it means is that there is a predictable outcome from the business, consistent predictable outcome from the business without the effort of the owner. It means that other people or other things, could be robotics or computer programs or whatever, but it's a combination of things that are bringing about this common or consistent, I should say, predictable outcome. The entrepreneur's job, as I define it, the true definition of an entrepreneur is then strategically positioning those resources, those people, the elements of the business to achieve that consistent outcome. That's what a business is on automatic. And the test is if you can take yourself out of the business for an extended period, I suggest 4 weeks minimally, a total disconnect from the business, and the business can continue to operate. That's the litmus test for a business that can run itself.
That sounds really, really scary.
It is. It is. I just talked with Cindy Thomas, and she's in the book. I feature her story. She just returned from a 4-week vacation, her and her husband, and it was fascinating. So the idea of a 4-week vacation is this, that every element of most businesses will be experienced within a 4-week period. Most businesses will have collections and will have sales to clients and engage new clients, maybe lose an employee or gain an employee. All these different elements go on. And usually they happen in these monthly cycles. So if an owner can remove themselves from the business for a 4-week period, the only way to do that is for the business to be prepared to do it. Now, back to Cindy's story, she did her first 4-week vacation, just got back about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, called me. And I said, well, what was your experience? And first of all, the business did not die. When you declare a 4-week vacation, you really have to start thinking, how am I going to pull this off? The second thing is her business actually grew. They engaged new clients and stuff, but some weaknesses did reveal themselves. The few employees, she has like 3 employees, so this could be a micro company that does this. They huddled and figured out ways to get through things, and it wasn't perfect, and there was bumps and bruises. And Cindy now is preparing to fix those things permanently, so the next 4-week vacation, those things won't be a problem. And the most fascinating thing, she said, by week 3, I questioned if I even wanted to return to the business. I was enjoying this so much, but she goes, I was also thinking at a much higher level about my business. I was no longer thinking how to get through the day, rushing to an urgent customer issue. She goes, I just automatically started thinking about the grand vision, how we can change the market strategically, where I can put people in the right positions doing the right things. And she also had the realization that if a business is dependent on the owner, inherent to that line or inherent to that explanation of a business, you can't scale. If it's dependent upon you, it can only go as far as you can go. She had this realization now she's out. This business has potential to scale to any size that she so desires.
Yeah, you end up having a job if it needs you in some ways.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like, I'm a chef at a restaurant. I am maxed out by how quickly I can produce, but there is a certain level where I just exhaust my effort. I can bring as much resources as possible. I can bring as much food in to be prepared as possible, but I am the choke point. There's a concept called the theory of constraints. And basically the concept is real simple. If I took a chain between you and me, Roger, and we're both pulling the chain as hard as we can, the chain will ultimately break at the weakest link. And therefore, to strengthen the chain, what you do is you strengthen that weakest link, and the entire chain is now strengthened till a new choke point presents itself, a new weak spot. Well, this is true in business too. In most businesses, the weakest link, and I don't mean this negatively, but the choke point for the business is the owner. If we can replace them with something stronger, better resources, different. Now, I'm not saying like a superior person, but a better system around them that's automated or something. And now we remove that weak link. Now the entire company gets elevated. That's the key. Making small decisions to strengthen the business in very specific spots First, removing the business owner from doing the work strengthens the entire business.
And I think this is really important for people that we're talking to that are in their 50s and they may have a business that they're running, because then, when you want to have time freedom.
Oh my God.
Mike, what I see is the idea is, well, I'm going to sell the business. Well, you're never going to get the multiple that you probably think you should have, because you're the secret sauce, right? You're the magic of the business. So unless you can extract yourself from being the magic of the business, you're never going to get a multiple that's even interesting to entertain.
So I've had the blessing now of selling 2 of my businesses. And so I know this inherently. I've experienced it. The value of a business is directly in relationship to the lack of participation of the owner in the day-to-day operations. Poorly worded, but what I'm saying is the less dependent a business is on the owner, the value increases exponentially. Think about it from the buyer side. The buyer looks at a business and says, oh, I'm dependent on someone. Well, if that person loses their enthusiasm, or worse, just becomes antagonistic toward the business, or just leaves. I mean, it's devastating to the business. There's high risk. But if the acquirer says, if that owner croaks tomorrow and this business hums along, there's tremendous value.
Yeah.
So there's value in not working in the business for your own sanity's sake. There's huge value in a monetary regard for a buyer when it's not dependent on you.
And I'm excited about your book, because you say this is actually how you do it rather than why you should do it, right? It's actually a playbook a little bit more. I haven't been able to dive into it.
I boiled it down to 7 steps, and I made them super simple. The heart of it is this thing called the QBR, which stands for Queen Bee role. The short synopsis is that every business has a critical function that is delivering, that the business really hinges its success on. And it's real simple. Whatever your brand promises, whatever the customers are buying from you, that, the thing that really differentiates you, if you peel back the onion only one layer, it's the function that you're doing that delivers on that promise. A doctor's office, for example, they promise a thorough professional examination. Well, it's the examinations that the doctor then is doing, or whoever's doing them, that is the QBR. Once you identify that one critical function in your business, do everything, A, to remove yourself out of it as the owner, and B, make sure that the other people or resources that are now delivering on that function, the QBR, are so strong and so robust that it becomes the strongest chain in your business, the strongest link in the business chain, and your entire business will elevate in a tremendous way, and the value will skyrocket, and the business won't be dependent on you.
And then, this dives into a lot of different things in that, wow, if you're not the special sauce, and I was having this discussion with an attorney who had a client that would, but I want to work with you, not the attorney that he had under him.
Right.
This goes to, wow, you better hire better. You better have a cohesive process and a culture so everybody is walking the same direction, right?
Yeah, that's the bane of so many professional service businesses. I, the client, want to work with the founder of the business, the owner, because my perception is they have the expertise. Well, that's a real problem. The expertise need to be not person dependent, but it's part of the system. It's inherent to the business. Because here's the flip side. Maybe that attorney pulls themselves out, but what they do, they replace them with another attorney who's extraordinary. Well, now you have what's called the reverse golden handcuffs. That one key employee has handcuffed the owner. That employee could say, you know what? I'm going to leave if you don't double my salary, or whatever, whatever demands they make, and we have to address that, or the business goes under. So the key is not to make a business dependent on a person, because that person then holds the keys to the kingdom. Make the company, the system, the process, that secret sauce. That's the power.
And that's probably, I imagine the owner is probably one of the biggest obstacles to following this path, because they're a scrappy owner and they think in terms of what you just said, plus they're control freaks in general. That's why.
Right. Our ego. Yeah, I'm totally there. You know what it is it's a very short-term focus. I struggled with this for years, of just like, I got to get through the day. Like, I got a big vision, but I got to get through the day. And so my business stayed in this day-to-day mindset, survival. And also I could do everything. So I did do everything. Once I transitioned to saying, hey, listen, 10 years from now, I have to be out of the business, or 3 years from now, what actions, what can I do strategically to make that a reality, change my mindset. But the other thing is my ego kept pulling me in. As I freed myself from my business, my mind at times said, oh, you know, I need to be part of the business. Not that I need to be part of the business. My ego felt bruised when I wasn't needed. So I also had to get past that by making that a very conscious awareness.
Right. It's your identity in a lot of ways. It's your identity in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so when I look at, I've gone deep into 3 of your books. Pumpkin Principle, which is that growth, you know, how to grow. Profit First is how to pay yourself first and how to manage in a very behavioral way the finances of things. Because it's amazing how you can have a business where the owner's making the least amount of money because he's not paying himself first. And so I think a clockwork is how to, you know, what we've been talking about. And the reason I think this is important for business owners over 50, especially, and I'd be interested in your comment, because you could, by doing this, you can increase the enterprise value of the business. But on the flip side, if the business can run without you, maybe you don't have to sell it near as much and actually get some time.
Yes, that's the big one. And that is another driver of value. So someone asked, you know, how do you evaluate what a business is worth? And they said, well, you got to, you know, get a third-party valuation, all stuff. And I'm like, no, that's nonsense. Here, I'll tell you exactly what your business is worth, what someone's willing to pay you for it and what you're willing to sell it for. It's that agreement. That's what the business is worth. All these outside valuations, it's just gamesmanship until you find what someone's willing to pay for you. Here's the determinants of what people are willing to pay and what you're willing to accept. From the outside, is it turnkey? Meaning, is it not dependent on you? Skyrockets the value. The second thing is, you know, are you inaccessible? The less accessible you are, the more desirous you become. So when you say, you know what, I don't want to sell my business, your value again skyrockets because human emotion kicks in. Mm-hmm. We want what we can't have. I have a friend who runs a very successful technology business. He gets solicited constantly. He's like, I'm not selling. One company finally came back to him and said, what do you need? And he laid out his number, which was a substantial number, and said, listen, if you don't come back with this number, don't call me back again. And it wasn't based upon any reality on what the company's worth in the traditional analysis field, but simply that he was inaccessible. And guess what? They came back and said, we structured a way to do this. And so if the business isn't dependent upon you and you love the business, you don't want to sell it, people will come with top dollar to acquire that.
And there's always that thing that we forget about is, wow, if I actually sell the business, now I have all this money and I got to figure out what to do with it, which is a whole nother problem.
That's true. What am I going to do with my life again?
Right. Where's my purpose? So we're going to have links to the book. It comes out on August 21st. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the audio, so I can hear your voice and your crazy sayings.
Thank you. Yeah, the audio for Clockwork just got posted on Amazon, so it's available now for pre-order.
Awesome.
That was a fun recording.
So we'll have links to it. And Mike Michalowicz, thank you so much, man.
You nailed it.
Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we noodle on living a happier life. And we have a special guest. This is Nicole's rock star son, Archer. How you doing, Archer?
Good.
So, Archer, I'm curious. How old are you?
4.5.
4.5. All right. So this is the Happy Lab. And what I would like to know is, what does a 4.5-year-old do every day to be happy?
What do you like to do every day?
Go to Tornado Cave.
Tornado what?
You don't do that every day.
I bet.
The arcade.
The arcade. Yeah, the arcade. But you can't do that every day. Is it give your mom a hug? That might make you happy. Yeah? Okay, he's shaking his head. What else? Give me one thing you do every day that makes you smile.
Swim.
Swim. Awesome. Yeah, swimming is great to get outside. Hey, Archer, thanks so much for sharing your Happy Lab ideas.
That's actually just your office.
Yeah, he's in his office.
Yes, I am in my office.
Okay, can you say bye?
Bye.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day sprint to take a baby step to live a happier life. So here's what I would suggest that you do. If you are an entrepreneur, in the next 7 days, think of one thing you can do to start to build processes to extract yourself from the business. And if you work for someone, what can you delegate? These are things that can buy you some time and maybe make you a little happier as well, and possibly set yourself up for some cool pretirement or a rockin' retirement. So go do that in the next 7 days. So next week, we kick off a 3-week session on how to manage relocation in retirement. That's a big thing that I see that people want to do, Nicole. They want to either build a new house or move to a new area in this new phase of life. And there's some really cool things you can do, but there are some potholes that I think you can avoid.
Do I need to send this to my parents?
Well, we haven't talked about that yet. Maybe we'll dive into that. Maybe I'll talk to your dad. But anyway,
Okay.
if you're thinking about retirement, or if you know somebody that is approaching retirement and is talking about this, share the show with them, because I think this will help people navigate this redefining or this relocation and maybe save you some money, but also save you a lot of hassle. So we'll start that next week. Until then, I'm Roger Whitney.
And I'm Nicole Mills, his awesome sidekick.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.